Hey everyone, and welcome back. Buckle up because we're going on a little road trip today, back to 1934.
Ooh, a cinematic road trip. I like it.
You got it. We're
Yeah.
diving deep into It Happened One Night.
A classic.
Total classic.
Yeah.
But more than just a classic rom-com, right? This movie made history.
Absolutely. It really set the standard for romantic comedies to come. 90 years later, people are still talking about it.
Okay, so before we hit the gas on this deep dive, can you give us a little background on the film? What makes this one so special?
Well, for starters, it's the first film to ever win all 5 main categories at the Academy Awards.
Whoa, wait, seriously, all 5?
Yep. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay. Nobody had done that before.
Wow. So it was a really big deal, even back then. Huge. And it proved that a rom-com could be both entertaining and critically acclaimed.
So like the Beyoncé of 1934, just sweeping the awards.
Huh, exactly. And, only 2 other films have managed to achieve that since then. One, Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Silence of the Lambs.
That's some serious company right there. So what was it about this particular movie? What are those magic ingredients that made it so successful, so influential?
Well, it really comes down to its timeless appeal and the way it masterfully utilizes classic rom-com tropes.
Okay, like what? Give us the breakdown.
You've got the unlikely couple trope, for one. Then there's the whole meet-cute situation that throws them together. And from there, it's that delicious, bickering, but undeniable attraction dynamic.
Classic. I can practically see the on-screen sparks already.
Exactly. And let's not forget the road trip. That cross-country adventure adds another layer of excitement and allows for some truly hilarious situations.
I'm already picturing those vintage cars and roadside diners. It's interesting, though, you said timeless appeal. But this film was made in the 1930s, a very specific time and place.
True. And speaking of a specific time, we can't forget that It Happened One Night came out in that brief, fascinating period known as pre-code Hollywood.
Pre-code Hollywood. Okay, now you've piqued my interest. What exactly does that mean? Fill us in.
So picture this. It's Hollywood before July of 1934, and the censors are a tad more lenient.
Lenient, huh? How lenient are we talking?
Let's just say filmmakers had a lot more freedom to explore themes of sexuality, crime, you name it. It was a wilder time.
Wow, juicy. So our seemingly innocent rom-com was right in the thick of it all.
Right on the cusp. It Happened One Night came out in 1934, just as the Hays Code, which really clamped down on what could be shown in films, was about to come into effect.
Oh, wow. So it just snuck in under the radar.
Exactly. The film manages to strike that perfect balance between the playful, suggestive humor of pre-code Hollywood and the emerging romantic sensibilities that would come to define the genre. It's a fascinating time capsule.
Talk about perfect timing. It's amazing how those pre-code sensibilities really come through, even in a rom-com. But this whole right place, right time thing has me thinking, wasn't there some drama behind the scenes, too?
Oh, absolutely. This film is full of juicy behind-the-scenes anecdotes. For one thing, neither Clark Gable nor Claudette Colbert was the studio's first choice for those roles.
Get out. You're kidding.
Nope. In fact, they both initially resisted taking on the film.
Wait, so how did they end up as, the iconic rom-com pairing?
Well, Gable was actually loaned out by his home studio, MGM, to Columbia Pictures as a sort of punishment for some contract disputes.
No way. So Hollywood's leading man was basically sent to director Frank Capra as a slap on the wrist.
Pretty much. And the rest, as they say, is history. But it gets even better. Claudette Colbert, she really wasn't a fan of the script.
Oh, no. Really? She hated the very thing that would make her a legend.
It definitely wasn't love at first sight. Rumor has it they had to offer her a huge salary to convince her to sign on. We're talking a lot of money, even for back then.
Wow. So we almost missed out on their incredible chemistry because of a studio feud and a hefty paycheck. Talk about a close call. Their performances in the film are just iconic. You can't imagine anyone else as those characters.
Exactly. They just clicked. Gable with his undeniable charm as the roguish reporter, and Colbert, so full of wit and independence as the runaway heiress.
Speaking of Colbert's character, Ellie Andrews, it strikes me that she was quite the progressive woman for the 1930s.
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why this film still resonates so strongly with modern audiences. She was a strong, independent woman who wasn't afraid to challenge societal expectations.
She totally drives the plot. She's not just sitting around waiting for a man to rescue her.
Exactly. She's taking charge of her own destiny. And that was pretty groundbreaking for a rom-com, even back then.
It's so interesting, though, because while it's this fun, charming love story, It Happened One Night, doesn't shy away from showing the realities of the Great Depression either.
Very true. The film definitely captures the spirit of the time. that sense of resilience and resourcefulness in the face of adversity.
You see it in those scenes of bus travel, hitchhiking, even those glimpses into hobo life. It's subtle, but it adds this whole other layer to the story.
It definitely makes it more than just a fluffy rom-com, that's for sure. It grounds the story in a reality that many people at the time were experiencing firsthand.
Like that scene, it's one of my favorites, where Peter teaches Ellie the art of dunking a donut in her coffee.
Oh, the Walls of Jericho scene.
Yes. It's such a small moment, but it speaks volumes.
It's about finding those small joys, those moments of connection, even when times are tough.
Those little moments, they really stay with you, don't they? It's like even though the film is set during this tumultuous period in history, it still manages to find those sparks of humor and heart.
Absolutely. And that's the mark of a truly great film, isn't it? Its ability to transcend time and place and speak to something universal.
Totally. And speaking of transcending time, I read somewhere that It Happened One Night had a surprising influence on, get this, Bugs Bunny.
You're not wrong.
Mm.
Believe it or not, the iconic carrot-chomping pose that Bugs does.
Wait, seriously, you're telling me Bugs Bunny stole his signature move from Clark Gable?
Well, let's just say it was an homage. There's a scene in the film where Gable's character, Peter, is leaning back against a fence post, munching on carrots and sharing some words of wisdom.
Oh, right. I remember that scene. I didn't even put two and two together.
It's amazing how these little details can pop up in unexpected places.
It really speaks to the film's enduring legacy. Even after all these years, it's still inspiring people, even cartoon rabbits.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how would a film like It Happened One Night be received if it were released today?
That's a great question. The world has changed a lot since 1934, that's for sure.
Right.
Do you think its charm would translate to modern audiences?
It's hard to say. On one hand, you have those kindless themes of love, adventure, and self-discovery that never go out of style. And the chemistry between Gable and Colbert, that's electric. But on the other hand... Well, some of the gender dynamics, the social attitudes portrayed in the film, they were a product of their time, for better or for worse.
Yeah, that's true. We've come a long way in terms of how we view relationships, societal expectations, all of that.
Exactly. And I think that's part of what makes classic films like this so fascinating to revisit. They offer a glimpse into a different era, a different way of seeing the world.
It's like holding up a mirror to both the past and the present, isn't it? Seeing how much has changed and also perhaps how some things remain the same.
Perfectly said. And that's the beauty of a deep dive like this. It's not just about revisiting a classic film. It's about sparking those conversations, those reflections on how art and society influence each other.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of the road for this deep dive into It Happened One Night. We've explored the making of this iconic film, its impact on Hollywood, even its surprising connection to a certain carrot-loving rabbit.
It's been quite a ride.
It has. But before we sign off, we want to hear from you. What did you find most fascinating about It Happened One Night? Head over to our website and share your thoughts. Until next time, happy watching.